Ladies and gentlemen, let me declare to you today your wait is over. This December is not just another month, it is a prophetic season. It's a divine appointment where God is turning the tables in your favor. The Bible reminds us, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. Habakkuk 2:3. You have waited, prayed, believed, and stood firm. Let me tell you, your waiting season was not a waste. God was not ignoring you, He was preparing you. He was orchestrating the right people, the right opportunities, and the right time for your breakthrough. This December, God says, I am working all things together for your good. The delays you experienced were divine alignments. The struggles you endured were shaping your character. The tears you cried were watering the seeds of greatness planted within you. Now, the season has shifted. God's timing is perfect. There's no such thing as a delay in God's purpose. What may seem like a setback is often a setup for something greater. Trust His timing. Every promise of God has a timeline. Your situation might have seemed stuck, your prayers unanswered, and your dreams unfulfilled, but let me assure you, God was never late. What felt like a delay was God's way of ensuring you were ready for the magnitude of the blessing He's about to release. December is the final month of the year, and there's something significant about this season. It's a season where endings meet beginnings, where the old makes way for the new, and where what once seemed wasted begins to reveal its value. God does not waste anything. Every moment of waiting, every ounce of effort, every tear you've cried, and every prayer you've prayed has been recorded in heaven. The wasted years, the fruitless endeavors, and the closed doors are not the end of your story. They are the foundation upon which God is about to build something extraordinary. When God's favor begins to work in your life, no obstacle can stand in your way. Favor is not fair, but it is faithful. It does not depend on what others think of you, nor does it rely on your past mistakes. When God places His favor on your life, He moves people, circumstances, and even nature to align with His purpose for you. This December, expect the unexpected. Prepare for the doors that were closed to suddenly swing open. The opportunities you thought were gone forever will be restored. The people who overlooked you will suddenly see the value God placed in you. Let me remind you of the power of divine alignment. Many times what we see as delays are God's way of protecting us from premature blessings. Imagine receiving something you're not yet prepared to handle. The weight of the blessing could overwhelm you instead of elevating you. That is why God, in His infinite wisdom, allows seasons of waiting. But now that season has shifted. December is not just the end of a calendar year, it is the conclusion of an era of stagnation and delay in your life. Nothing you've experienced is wasted. Every trial, every setback, and every disappointment was a necessary part of your process. You see, God is not just interested in what you do, He's invested in who you become. The struggles were not meant to break you, but to build you. The challenges were not meant to destroy you, but to refine you. The tears you shed in private were watering the seeds of destiny that are now about to blossom in public. God is not limited by human timelines. He is not confined by earthly schedules. He operates on a divine calendar, and when your appointed time comes, no power in heaven or on earth can stop His plan for your life. This December is your appointed time. It is the season where everything you've endured begins to make sense. The struggles, the heartbreaks, the rejections, all of it was working together for your good. Faith is the currency of the kingdom, and faith without works is dead. As you step into this December, step with boldness. Begin to act on the promises you've been holding on to. Speak life into the areas that seem dead. Move forward in faith, knowing that God has already gone ahead of you to prepare the way. You are not stepping into the unknown, you are stepping into the fulfillment of God's promise. The evidence of His hand will be undeniable. People will look at your life and see the favor of God at work. They will marvel at how quickly things have turned around for you. What once seemed impossible will become your reality. What once felt out of reach will be placed in your hands. This December is not just a month of transition, it is a month of manifestation. Do not be afraid to embrace what God is doing. The time for doubt is over. The season for second guessing has passed. Walk boldly into your purpose, knowing that He who began a good work in you will surely bring it to completion. You were not created to live a life of mediocrity. You were designed for greatness. This December, God is calling you out of the shadows of yesterday and into the light of His purpose. Your waiting season was not wasted. Let me say it again, your waiting season was not wasted. God never wastes a season. The lessons, the trials, and even the tears you've shed were shaping you for His promise. There's a divine purpose in everything you've been through. While the world may see waiting as inactivity, in the kingdom of God, waiting is a process of preparation. Consider the farmer who plants a seed. The seed doesn't sprout immediately, it goes into the soil, unseen and buried. During this hidden season, the seed is germinating, taking root, and drawing nutrients. What appears to be inactivity is actually the most crucial phase of growth. Likewise, your waiting season was not barren, it was a period of divine cultivation. Some of you may feel like you've been buried by the weight of disappointments, by the heaviness of delays, or by the challenges you've faced. But let me remind you that what looks buried is not dead, it's planted. The tears you cried were not wasted. They watered the soil of your destiny. The trials you endured were not meaningless. They strengthened your roots so you could stand firm when the winds of life blow. The lessons you learned in the dark are equipping you to thrive in the light. God is intentional. He doesn't allow you to go through anything without a purpose. The waiting season was a time of refining, a time of shaping, and a time of pruning. You might have felt like you were losing things, relationships, opportunities, or even hope. But sometimes God has to remove what's hindering your growth to make room for what's about to bloom. Pruning may feel painful, but it is necessary for fruitfulness. Think of Joseph, who spent years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. To the untrained eye, his waiting season looked wasted. But in reality, God was positioning him for purpose. The prison was not the end, it was the preparation ground for the palace. Similarly, your waiting season was not a detour, it was a part of God's divine route to your destiny. Waiting is where your faith is tested and your character is formed. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, but true faith is built in the waiting. It's in those moments of uncertainty, when the answers are delayed, and when the promises seem distant, that your trust in God deepens. The waiting season taught you resilience, patience, and perseverance. It strengthened your spirit and aligned your heart with God's will. You may have looked at others who seemed to be advancing while you remained in the same place. You might have wondered why it seemed like everyone else was reaping while you were still sowing. But let me remind you of this: God's timing for you is unique. Comparison is the thief of joy, and what God has for you is tailor-made. Your waiting was not a punishment, it was a preparation. The greater the promise, the greater the preparation. Some of you need to look back at your journey and see the hand of God in your waiting season. What you thought was a delay was God's protection. The opportunities you didn't get were doors God intentionally kept closed because they weren't part of His plan. The relationships that ended were God's way of clearing the path for those who were truly aligned with your destiny. Even the struggles that seemed unbearable were molding you into the person you needed to become to carry the weight of the blessing that's coming. Waiting is not wasted when it's in God's hands. Every moment, every experience, every challenge, and every triumph is woven into His greater plan for your life. The time you spent waiting was a time of preparation for what He's about to release. Think of the butterfly that struggles in its cocoon before it can fly. Without the struggle, its wings wouldn't develop the strength to soar. In the same way, your waiting season has strengthened your spiritual wings. Let me encourage you today, the waiting season was not the end of your story, it was the beginning of a greater chapter. What God has prepared for you is worth the wait. The doors that are about to open, the blessings that are about to be released, and the breakthroughs that are about to manifest will make sense of every tear, every prayer, and every moment of perseverance. God's word says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, Romans 8:28. All things include the waiting, the trials, the delays, and even the disappointments. Nothing is wasted in the kingdom of God. Your waiting season was not an accident, it was an assignment. It was a divine process to prepare you for the promise. This December, as you look back at the year, see the faithfulness of God in your waiting. See how he carried you, provided for you, and strengthened you. Recognize that every delay was a setup for something greater. The waiting season is over, and now it's time to walk into what God has been preparing you for. Divine favor opens closed doors. Let me declare it boldly: what man cannot open, God can swing wide. When his favor begins to work in your life, no obstacle can stand in your way. There is no force on earth, no circumstance too dire, and no opposition too great that can hinder the plans of God when his favor rests upon you. You see, favor is not something you earn, it is a gift from God. It is his hand moving on your behalf, orchestrating events and aligning opportunities that were previously out of reach. Human efforts and connections can only take you so far, but divine favor bypasses the limitations of man. When God decides to show you favor, he makes ways where there were no ways, and he turns impossibilities into realities. Think about the Israelites standing before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. To the natural eye, it looked like there was no way out. But God's favor doesn't recognize impossibilities. What seemed like a closed door, a vast and impassable sea, became the very pathway to their deliverance. God parted the waters and made a way where there was no way. In the same way, you may feel like you're standing before a door that has been shut for too long. Perhaps it's a career opportunity, a relationship, or a dream that seems out of reach. Let me remind you that divine favor doesn't ask for permission. When God commands a door to open, it must obey. No opposition, no rejection, and no human decision can override the will of God. The beauty of divine favor is that it's not based on who you are, but on who God is. Favor is not about your qualifications, your background, or even your past mistakes. It is about God's goodness and his faithfulness to his word. Some of you have been overlooked, underestimated, or even dismissed, but when God's favor comes upon you, it will elevate you beyond what anyone thought was possible. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers and later falsely accused and thrown into prison. To anyone observing, his life seemed like a series of closed doors. But Joseph's story didn't end there, because God's favor was upon him. In one moment, he went from the prison to the palace, becoming second in command over all of Egypt. That's what divine favor does. It accelerates you beyond human limitations and positions you in places you never imagined you could reach. I want you to know that the closed doors you've encountered were not the end of the story. Sometimes God allows certain doors to remain shut because he has something better in store. What looks like rejection is often God's redirection. His favor ensures that the doors you walk through are the ones that lead to your purpose. This December, prepare for God to swing wide the doors that have been shut in your life. Some of these doors have been closed for years, and you've grown accustomed to the idea that they'll never open. But when divine favor begins to operate, it doesn't matter how long the door has been locked or how many people have told you no. God's yes is more powerful than any man's no. Think about Esther, a young Jewish woman who found herself in a foreign land with no claim to power or influence. Yet through divine favor, she was chosen to be queen and used her position to save her people from destruction. Esther didn't rely on her own strength or connections, she relied on the favor of God. That same favor is available to you. When God opens a door, walk through it boldly. Don't hesitate and don't second guess yourself. Some of you have been praying for open doors, but when they appear, fear and doubt try to creep in. Let me remind you that divine favor not only opens doors, but also equips you to walk through them. God doesn't open doors you're unprepared to enter. If the door is open, it's because He has already equipped you for what's on the other side. Let me also caution you, not every open door is from God. That's why discernment is key. Divine favor doesn't just lead to opportunities, it aligns you with God's purpose. When God opens a door, it won't just bless you, it will glorify Him. It will bring peace, fulfillment, and a deeper sense of purpose. As you move into this season, expect the unexpected. What seemed impossible is about to become your reality. The favor of God is about to take you places you never thought you'd go, introduce you to people you never imagined meeting, and open doors that no man can shut. What was once unattainable is now within reach because of His favor. Remember, it's not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. You are stepping into a season where divine favor will make the difference. The closed doors, the delays, and the detours were all part of God's perfect plan to bring you to this moment. Now it's time to step forward, knowing that His favor has gone before you and prepared the way. This is the month of transformation. December is not just the end of the year, it's the fulfillment of a season. It is a divine turning point where breakthroughs happen, where the old is left behind and the new begins. God is declaring over your life that this is the month where things change. What seems stagnant will begin to move. What felt broken will start to be restored. This is not a time to look back in regret, but to look forward in faith. Transformation is a process, but in God's timing, it often manifests in moments. Those moments become defining markers in your life, where everything shifts and you know that only God could have orchestrated it. December is one of those moments. It's not just the closing of a calendar year, it is the closing of a season of struggle, delay, and uncertainty. It is the start of something new, fresh, and full of divine purpose. Transformation often begins with a shift in perspective. Many times we carry the weight of what hasn't worked, the disappointment of unmet expectations, and the residue of past failures. But God is saying, "Behold, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" Isaiah 43:19. To step into this month of transformation, you must let go of the old. The old way of thinking, the old patterns, and the old doubts have no place in the new thing God is doing in your life. Some of you have been waiting for a breakthrough, and I declare to you that this is the month it happens. The breakthroughs that seem distant are now within reach because God's timing is perfect. Breakthroughs are not just about external changes, they are about internal shifts that align you with God's purpose. They are moments where what was hidden becomes revealed, where what was blocked is released, and where what was delayed is delivered. This December, God is calling you to release what's behind you so He can transform what's before you. The Apostle Paul said, "Forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before." Philippians 3:13. You cannot walk into your transformation while holding on to the weight of the past. Let go of the fear, the failure, and the frustration. Let go of the old identities that no longer serve who God is calling you to be. Transformation often begins with surrender. When you release control and trust God completely, you create space for Him to move. Many of us want change but resist the process because it requires stepping into the unknown. But faith is about trusting that God's plans are good, even when you can't see the full picture. Trust that He is the potter and you are the clay. He is shaping you, molding you, and preparing you for something extraordinary. This month of transformation is not about small incremental changes, it is about divine shifts that will redefine your life. When God transforms, He doesn't just improve, He renews. He doesn't just restore, He makes all things new. Think about the caterpillar which spends its life crawling on the ground until it enters the cocoon. In that hidden place, a transformation occurs. What emerges is not a better caterpillar, but an entirely new creation, a butterfly designed to soar. In the same way, God is calling you out of your cocoon. The hidden seasons, the waiting periods, and the struggles were all part of the process. Now, it's time to emerge into the fullness of who He created you to be. It's time to leave behind the limitations, the fears, and the doubts that kept you grounded. This is your season to soar. December is also a month of clarity. Transformation brings vision. It's in this season that God begins to reveal His plans more clearly. What seemed confusing will start to make sense. The detours, the delays, and even the disappointments will be seen for what they were: divine strategies to position you for this moment. You will begin to see how God was working behind the scenes, aligning people, resources, and opportunities for your breakthrough. This month, expect God to do the unexpected. Expect sudden shifts, divine encounters, and miraculous turnarounds. Transformation is often preceded by a sense of discomfort or uncertainty, but don't let that discourage you. What feels like shaking is often God removing what doesn't belong so that He can establish what does. Remember, transformation is not just about changing your circumstances, it's about changing you. God is more interested in your growth than your comfort. He is using this month to stretch your faith, deepen your trust, and expand your vision. The new thing He is doing in your life requires a new version of you, one that is bold, confident, and fully aligned with His will. As you step into this month of transformation, hold on to the promise that God's plans for you are good. He is not finished with you. In fact, He is just getting started. This December is not the end of the story, it is the beginning of something extraordinary. Transformation is here. Breakthrough is here. The old has passed away, and the new is emerging. Step into the manifestation of your faith. This is the moment where what you have believed for in your heart begins to materialize in your life. The Word tells us that faith without works is dead, James 2:26. Faith is not passive, it's active. It requires action, obedience, and a readiness to move when God says move. This month, God is aligning circumstances, opening doors, and making the impossible possible so that your faith can produce visible results. Faith has always been the currency of heaven. It is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, Hebrews 11:1. But faith is not merely about believing, it's about doing. It's about stepping out even when you don't see the full picture. Some of you have been holding on to promises, praying for breakthroughs, and trusting God in the silence. This is the month where your faith moves from the invisible to the visible, from expectation to manifestation. Think of Abraham, the father of faith. God gave him a promise that he would become the father of many nations. But Abraham's faith didn't remain in the realm of belief, it was demonstrated through action. When God told him to leave his home and go to a land he had never seen, Abraham obeyed. When God asked him to sacrifice his son Isaac, the very embodiment of the promise, Abraham acted in faith. His obedience activated the manifestation of God's promises. This December, God is calling you to step into action. The time for waiting is over. The prayers you've been praying, the dreams you've been nurturing, and the visions God has placed in your heart are ready to come forth. But they require your participation. Faith isn't just about trusting God to do His part. It's about being willing to do yours. Some of you have been hesitant, waiting for perfect conditions before you move. But Ecclesiastes 11:4 reminds us, whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Stop waiting for everything to align before you take the first step. Faith often requires you to step out before you see the full provision. Remember, the Red Sea didn't part until Moses stretched out his rod. The walls of Jericho didn't fall until the Israelites marched around them. Action activates manifestation. This is the month where God is aligning circumstances in your favor. The things that seemed out of reach will begin to come within your grasp. The opportunities that seemed distant will suddenly appear. This is not coincidence, it is divine orchestration. God has been working behind the scenes, moving pieces into place, and now is the time for you to step forward in faith. Faith also requires a mindset shift. You must begin to see yourself as God sees you, capable, equipped and destined for greatness. Too often we allow fear, doubt, and past failures to hold us back. But God is saying, step into the manifestation of your faith. Let go of the limitations you've placed on yourself and embrace the unlimited possibilities of God's power. Think about Peter, who walked on water. As long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus, he did the impossible. But the moment he focused on the wind and waves, he began to sink. This month, keep your eyes on the promise, not the problem. Focus on the God who makes all things possible, not the circumstances that seem insurmountable. The manifestation of your faith will not only bless you, but also serve as a testimony to others. When people see what God is doing in your life, it will inspire them to trust Him in their own journey. Your visible results will glorify God and draw others closer to Him. This is why your faith matters. It's not just about what God wants to do for you, but what He wants to do through you. As you step into this month, ask yourself, what has God been prompting me to do? What steps of faith have I been hesitant to take? Perhaps it's launching that business, starting that ministry, pursuing that dream, or mending that relationship. Whatever it is, now is the time. This December is a season of action. It's a season where your obedience meets God's power, and the result is divine manifestation. Let me encourage you, don't let fear or doubt hold you back. The same God who placed the promise in your heart is the one who will bring it to pass. He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He doesn't ask for perfection, He asks for obedience. Take the step, even if it's small. Trust that as you move in faith, God will meet you in ways you cannot yet imagine. This month you will see the fruit of your faith. The seeds you've sown in prayer and service and in sacrifice are about to yield a harvest. The dreams that seemed delayed are about to come alive. The promises that felt distant are about to manifest. This is the month where faith becomes sight, where what was invisible becomes undeniable, and where God's glory is revealed in your life. Step into it boldly, for your wait is over, and the manifestation of your faith has begun. The waste is over. Walk in purpose. Every effort you've made, every investment you've sown, every prayer you've cried out that seemed unanswered is about to bear fruit. What felt like wasted time, wasted energy, and wasted opportunities was never wasted in the eyes of God. He has been working in ways you could not see, ensuring that every tear, every sacrifice, and every act of faith was building toward this moment. The waste is over, and now is the time to reap. One of the greatest lies the enemy tries to convince us of is that our efforts are in vain, that the time we've spent believing, the energy we've invested in doing good, and the sacrifices we've made for others have amounted to nothing. But Galatians 6:9 reminds us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. The harvest was never in question, it was only a matter of time. This December, God is declaring an end to the season of apparent waste. What you thought was lost, forgotten, or overlooked is about to be redeemed. Every seed you planted in faith, every act of obedience, and every prayer that seemed to linger without an answer has been stored in the heavenly account, waiting for the appointed time. That time is now. Think about the farmer who sows seeds into the ground. For weeks, perhaps months, there is no visible sign of growth. To the untrained eye, it might look like the seeds were wasted. But beneath the surface, a transformation is taking place. Roots are growing, foundations are being laid, and soon the harvest will appear. In the same way, the seeds you've sown in faith were never wasted. They were planted in the fertile soil of God's promise, and the harvest is on its way. Sometimes what feels like waste is actually preparation. David spent years tending sheep in obscurity before he became king. Those years might have seemed insignificant, but they were not wasted. They were the training ground for his destiny. Similarly, Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before stepping into his role as a leader in Egypt. What looked like wasted years were, in fact, the foundation for God's greater plan. Now is your time to walk in purpose. The waiting, the trials, and the delays were all part of God's preparation for what is coming next. There is no more time to linger in regret or question what could have been. God is saying, the waste is over. This is your season to step fully into the purpose He has called you to. Walking in purpose requires a shift in mindset. No longer can you view your past efforts as futile or your experiences as random. Romans 8:28 assures us that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. Every trial, every lesson, and every closed door was working together to position you for this moment. Let me remind you that God does not waste anything. The tears you've cried were watering the seeds of your future. The prayers you've prayed were building a foundation of faith. The sacrifices you made were aligning you with His perfect plan. Even the moments you felt were failures were being used by God to shape you, strengthen you, and prepare you for what's ahead. This is the month to move with intentionality. Walking in purpose means embracing the opportunities God is placing before you and refusing to be paralyzed by fear or doubt. It means understanding that you are not stepping into this season by accident, but by divine design. Every delay, every detour, and every difficulty was setting the stage for your purpose to unfold. As you walk in purpose, expect fruit to appear where you least expected it. Some of the investments you made years ago, the prayers you prayed in seasons past, and the relationships you nurtured without seeing immediate results are about to bear fruit. God's timing is perfect, and when He decides it's time to reap, nothing can stop the harvest. Let me encourage you, do not despise the journey that brought you here. What felt like waste was God's way of ensuring you would be ready for the weight of the blessing you are about to receive. Every disappointment was a lesson. Every closed door was protection. Every waiting period was preparation. Now it's time to walk boldly into your purpose, knowing that God has gone before you to prepare the way. The waste is over and the reaping has begun. This is your season to gather what you've sown, to see the fruit of your faith, and to walk fully in the destiny God has planned for you. Step forward with confidence, for what was lost is being restored, and what was delayed is being delivered. God's purpose for your life is unfolding, and this is the month where His promise becomes your reality. Ladies and gentlemen, as we stand at the threshold of this December, let me declare over your life, the wait is over, the waste is over, and the time is now. This is not just another month, it is a divine moment, a Kairos season where heaven touches earth and the promises of God become manifest in your life. You are not here by accident. Every step, every trial, every tear has been leading to this moment. God is saying to you, behold, I make all things new. The doors that were shut are opening. The seeds that were sown are bearing fruit. The prayers you whispered in the night are being answered in the light of day. This is your time to reap, to rise, and to step fully into the purpose for which you were created. Let faith lead you, let hope sustain you, and let God's favor carry you. Refuse to look back with regret or forward with fear. For the one who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. Walk boldly, not because of who you are, but because of who God is. He is your strength, your provider, and your ever-present help. This December, embrace the transformation, seize the manifestation, and step into your destiny. The old is gone and the new has come. God has spoken and His word will not return void. It is your time, your season, and your moment. Walk into it with courage, with purpose, and with unwavering faith. The wait is over. The waste is over. Now is your time to live the life God has destined for you. Go forth and shine, for His glory is upon you.